Well, hi there. Warm welcome. You're watching the newspaper show with me, Meghna Deka. If you're like me, you need to have your morning cup of coffee with your newspaper. Well, this is just the show for you. I've got all these newspapers with me, and we're going to be looking at the topmost headlines across all these papers to give you a quick roundup of what it is that you should know while you are in lockdown to ensure that you're not completely locked out from news. Well, let's begin with the Times of India. Now, one of the biggest concerns, this is very important because this is where all the farmers are going to be looking at the skies very closely for the monsoons. That's right, the monsoon which covers India 12 days in advance, the fastest since 2013. Well, that's come up in the flyer, goes to show the importance of the story. It gives it a graphical representation as to what can be expected. In central India, 44% above normal. In northwest India, it's going to be 13.2%. And these are very important because there are a lot of agrarian belts that we have in these areas. In the east as well as the northeast, a 12.6% hike is going to be then normal monsoons that we have seen. A swift progress is expected from July 11th onwards all the way across to from June, I beg your pardon, 26th on to July 11th. And this is a bit of good news at least coming in, a good sign for sowing, the fact that we are expecting 22% rain surplus. But of course, our focus continues to be Corona, which is why right on the flyer it gives you a quick update of what really is the overall figure. Times of India tells you that the Corona count has gone from 4 lakh to breaching that psychological mark of 5 lakh now in the last 6 days alone. In 6 days it took to hike from 4 lakh to 5 lakh. Meanwhile, it also says that 18,000 plus cases have come in on Friday itself. So there has been a slight rise in the growth case as well, and the growth rate is the disturbing bit. But right here on the top page itself, it tells you about the number of cases. The total cases are 5,977. Meanwhile, the number of people recovered, and this is a very, very significant figure that we keep telling our viewers that it is the number of people who have recovered, which is 2,95,431, which is extremely crucial. Well, of course, it's got several other important bit of news also which is coming in. It goes on to talk about China. The total combat potential will deter the Chinese forces. This is what our armed forces are saying. The Army Chief himself has briefed the Prime Minister yesterday, as well as Rajnath Singh, the Raksha Mantri, regarding the Ladakh situation. This is going to be one of those stories which is there across all the big newspapers, the headlines that they've been talking about Corona, China, as well as what's expected with the monsoon. So let's take a quick look at what really it is that Navbharat Times is telling us. So these are the flyers. Remember, this is going to be much more important. LAC, it also talks about the LAC, and it's got several other such follow-up stories which are coming in that we've seen in Times of India as well. In fact, a quick look at this very interesting story which had come in on Times of India. I don't want any of our viewers to miss this one, and I really do think that all of you should take a look at it. It's about how Times of India chronicled India's resistance to 1962 China intrusion. This is a beautiful edit piece which has been written by Vallabh Pundarajay, and I think that you should definitely take a look at it. And what's interesting, you have these archival pictures of Times of India's editions way back in 23rd of July 1962. Look at the legacy that we've got here. Also, it's got another one about the big losses which were inflicted on the advancing Chinese, the valor of our braves, that this edition of Times of India talks about from 28th of October 1962 again. So you have interesting news which is coming in about how it is a historic trouble that we've had with China, who've had expansionist policies when it comes to this entire Ladakh area. In fact, this is an interesting story, and I really hope that all you viewers get a chance to read it. It's got archival main pages and stories of all the Times of India editions which had come in September 14 as well in 1962. This is, of course, during the war. What were the top few headlines at that time? It talks about Krishna Menon at the time. He was the defense minister. He was relieved of his post. It's got the story. It's also on 22nd of September 1962. The headline at that time was China resumes patrol. It sets up new posts, western sector of border with India, so on and so forth. Also, it talks about Tawang. This is the Arunachal border, remember? On 26th of October 1962, Times of India had put out the story saying Tawang falls to Chinese after bitter fighting. Situation in Nefa, the northeast frontier area, is getting more and more serious. Remember, they had invaded and come all the way across to Tezpur in Assam, which is why we had seen a stern hit back from the Indian side, following which, of course, in 1963, there was that very infamous pact which was signed under which Siachen was ceded to China. They took occupation of those regions. Meanwhile, we were showing you how even on Navbharat Times, you have similar number of stories which are coming in regarding what's happening on the Indo-China border in Ladakh. It talks about LAC se kaise piche hatenge sainik khaka tayar. Essentially, the strategy is now ready as to how our soldiers are now going to be stepping back. Disengagement is the term which is being used time and again. How is this disengagement going to be? There is an entire edit which is there. It explains to you step by step what is the understanding between Chinese and the Indian. Remember, they have been engaging diplomatically as well as militarily to ensure that there is a step back. So far, however, we'll have to wait and see if this does happen on ground. But this is an important story also which is coming in regarding अस्पतालों में ICU के bed बढ़ाए जाएंगे by the Delhi government. In Delhi, the government has come out. Kejriwal has said that it's important that ICU beds are increased. This is something that we are going to be taking up with our Delhi reporters and get you more stories and inputs on this as well, because it's important. Remember, coronavirus continues to be one of the biggest concerns when it comes to it. In fact, we have all kinds of stories regarding corona on the top flyer here in Navbharat Times. It gives you all the important stories which are coming in. This is the corona text that they are giving is corona heroes stories which are coming in and similar stories related to corona. So a quick look at this top band here, you will get to see all the stories which are related to corona, which is a good comprehensive view that you get of all of this. After all, another one of the stories which is coming in that a lot of people have been very worried about, and understandably so, are the hike in fuel prices. And Navbharat Times too talks about how Delhi mein petrol to 80 par 2 saal mein pehli bar. For the first time in 2 years, the price of petrol has now crossed 80 in Delhi, which is quite unprecedented. Similar such stories are coming in. You should take a look at Navbharat Times as well if you want a clearer understanding. But a quick look at what Economic Times also has to offer. Now, this is very significant because, after all, we are in the midst of a corona-induced recession. We need to know what's happening around us in the world of economy, don't we? But it talks about how Russia has agreed to look at the advancing S-400 delivery. This is, of course, very significant in the midst of the defense minister himself had traveled across to Moscow. It talks of I beg your pardon, about how the Indo-Russian JV joint venture will be making spares in India, also maybe expediters. And this is going to be very significant. The Made in India push is going to be given another massive impetus with this. India will be urging Russia to rush through the delivery of S-400 system. Now, this is, remember, something that Economic Times had already reported on 22nd of June, that India will be pressing Russia to expedite the delivery of this anti-missile system. Of course, it gives India a massive advantage if ever it is required. Russia, remember, is the #1 defense supplier to India. Other than the defense supplies, it also talks about what's happening on the China front economically. A relief package likely in the physical checks of Chinese cargo. After, remember, there were strict, stern measures which were put in place. Now it talks about a graded response. A high-level finance ministry meeting has decided to ease the customs scrutiny, and there are going to be relaxations after a thorough examination of the ground-level situation. No formal instruction, however, has been given from the government. The custom checks till now have been on the basis of intelligence input in the system. So all those people who are dealing with Chinese companies who have imports coming in it is going to be a huge breather for them. This is what Economic Times is telling us, not just about what's happening on the defense supply front, but also what happens in case you are in business with the Chinese, that there are going to be a bit of relief likely. We are going to be tracking this very closely for you here on Times Now as well. Meanwhile, let's tell you how another very interesting story is here. India keeps a vigilant eye on POK as Chinese air activity increases. Gives you a quick look as to what is the close watch. It says that Skardu is located just 100 kilometers from the Leh air base and has recently been expanded by Pakistan, and how in August this year it was used by the Pakistani JF-17s on their way to exercise with China. So it's not just giving you a roundup of all the business-related stories, but also other news that you really need to know. There are several such stories. I wish I have time to tell you all of that. I'm going to check how much time I have to get you all these stories, but this is going to be an interesting day today, considering there is a lot expected when it comes to clarifications on this. Meanwhile, let's also tell you how there is a Home Secretary meeting which is happening in the Delhi COVID case. Other than that, when it comes to specific cities, it talks about the high positivity rate, also the low testing, which has been a huge worry in Telangana as well as Hyderabad. Hyderabad, after all, has recorded the second highest positive rate in 32.1%. So if you're living there, it's time to become very, very careful about the precautions that you take. Meanwhile, this is an important story coming in. A 12-hour night curfew has been imposed in Assam and 2-week lockdown in Guwahati. Remember, so far the northeast has not been greatly affected, but now it's reached the stage where it is being decided that perhaps a lockdown has to be done. A lot of people, remember, have gone back to the northeast since they were living in other parts of India which were in the red zone. But then, unfortunately, now that has also led to a spike in the numbers there which are coming in. So which is why perhaps we see sterner now steps which are happening, and a 12-hour night curfew has been imposed in Assam, in addition to a 2-week lockdown norm which is also in place. After that, also let's tell you how the panel which has been looking into it, it's a government panel, has been rather concerned over the lack of response from the COVID helplines, has said it's important to include bed availability in Arogya Setu as well. Remember, Arogya Setu is one of those all-important apps now which helps keep you safe. But now a panel has said you must ensure that availability of beds, which has now become a mounting problem, is also put up in Arogya Setu. Well, these are important suggestions which are coming in from the panel. Remember, the government has been looking into what can be done to alleviate the problems of the people in the midst of this pandemic. But let's go back to another specific story that we were talking about earlier and get a quick input from the ground. This regarding the fact that the Delhi government has said that we must have more ICU beds. City-wise news let's get for you. So for that, let me go across to Parveena, our correspondent who's joining us. Parveena, of course, looking at the numbers that we have in front of here on Times of India, we know this is, of course, the Delhi edition that I'm looking at. We know that this is going to be a problem for Delhi. However, what is going to be the road plan to improve and increase the number of beds which are available by the Aam Aadmi Party government?
Well, we have seen, Meghna, that for the past few weeks there have been a marathon cabinet meeting by Delhi cabinet, one after one, looking at the situation, evaluating what steps to be taken. And of course, availability of bed was essential and is essential, and hence world's biggest COVID center is in Delhi right now, in Delhi's Chhatarpur Ramswamy Center, where they have almost 10,000 beds. But even after doing that, just not that, they've also introduced a new hospital with more beds coming in. They have paced it up and have inaugurated the hospital and to introduce more beds in Burari Hospital as well. But after the latest meeting, the Delhi cabinet did realize, the normal number of bed is sufficient now, because on an average each day, Delhi now requires 6,000 beds, because the number of admission is equal to the number of people who are getting discharged discharged. But what is the requirement right now is ICU beds, because more and more people, who are with severe ailment need hospital more than people with mild symptoms. And hence, they have introduced more ICU beds in 2-3 hospitals in the national capital. For example, Rajiv Gandhi Super Speciality Hospital, Guru Tegh Bahadur and Lok Nayal Hospital will have more ICU beds now. And also in several other centers, they're working on it because now the aim is to reduce the death rate in Delhi. While the average rate right now in Delhi 24 hours is 3,000 to 3,500 cases, positive cases. But in these cases also it varies as to mild symptoms, normal symptoms, and people with severe ailment getting testing COVID positive. And hence the preparation is done accordingly. And we are looking forward that these 3 hospitals will have ICU beds with more tools which require for these patients, and they'll be introduced and implemented as soon as possible. It'll be interesting to see if that can actually bring the death rate, down in the national capital.
We'll keep tracking the developments on that front. Thank you so much. Yes, hopefully this is going to bring down the death rates, and that has been one of the biggest concerns. Meanwhile, there's more news coming in. This one from Goa. Breaking news, the Chief Minister Pramod Sawant has said that we will have to admit that community transmission has begun in the state of Goa, but infection has been traced to some common sources as well. Well, there you have it. Goa has been one of the safest cities when it comes to it. However, unfortunately, even in the state of Goa now, the Chief Minister has come out. There's a huge statement and admission that, yes, indeed, community transmission has begun. Remember, a lot of state governments have been rather wary when it comes to admitting that there is community transmission, which has already begun. The Chief Minister there has already, Mr. Sawant, has come out and said community transmission has begun. At least the good thing is that he says that infection has been, however, traced down to a couple of specific sources. But with that, let's move on in the bulletin. Let's get you a quick look at what the city edition there you can see on your screens of Mumbai has been talking about. Now, one of the top headlines that this one is making, this is very interesting, is that 93 blast convict Yusuf Memon has died in Nashik jail. Let me go across to Arunil, who's joining us. Arunil, this man and the kind of barbarities that he's been convicted of, for many people, this is finally going to be end, or rather a closure.
Well, yes, basically, Meghna, 56-year-old Yusuf Memon, the brother of Tiger Memon, the main conspirator in the 1993 blast. He was also one of the main accused, Yusuf Memon. He was basically charged of basically giving his premises, giving his properties, wherein the plan of the 12 bombings that shook the city of Mumbai were acted upon. That was the main charge against Yusuf Memon, as well as he was charged of keeping arms as well. So he died because of heart attack. That's what we get to know. He was lodged at the Nashik central jail, and after complaining about chest pain, he was taken to the local hospital in Nashik. However, he was brought dead at the hospital itself. That's what the hospital authorities are confirming. The younger brother of Yusuf Memon, the youngest brother of Tiger Memon, in fact, Isa Memon, was also in the same Nashik jail, and both the brothers have been charged of some serious activities and were placed in the special cell of the Nashik jail. The 1993 bomb blast, which shook the city of Mumbai, around 250 people, innocent lives, were lost in these 12 bombings that occurred in the city of Mumbai, and more than 100 people were seriously injured as well. So one of the main accused, Yusuf Memon, dying because of heart attack in Nashik Central Jail.
Well, thank you so much, Arunil, for that quick update. Well, from the city of Mumbai, let's take you across to Kolkata. On your screens, you're getting the picture, there you have it, of the Kolkata edition of the Times of India. And one thing that it talks about is how the government has cancelled the pending higher secondary examinations, and that the results will be coming out by 31st of July. Of course, this is on the front page of the Kolkata edition. However, this is something that people across the entire country have been asking and very interested in, considering they have so many and know so many children who have pending examinations. Let me go across to Tamal. Tamal, not just for Kolkata, but this is a significant story which is coming in of the government having cancelled pending higher secondary exams for everyone in India.
Well, that's right. In fact, it happened after the Supreme Court the lockdown is known and even the fact that the exam schedule has been not once for many a times. But coming to Bengal, it's
Oh, well, Tamal, unfortunately, there seems to be a bit of a problem there with your audio connection. We'll try and get that fixed. Meanwhile, let's move on in the bulletin from Kolkata, the Bengaluru edition of Times of India and what the headlines there are. And the one that we are going to be focusing on amongst all the stories is how the High Court has suggested optional web classes for limited hours. That's the big story that is coming in, how the government's move to ban online session is also being looked into. Let me go across to Deepak. Deepak, what can you share with us?
Well, now, of course, the High Court has opened up the debate once again because the Karnataka government had banned, online classes from 1 to 5 and later even said that recorded classes too cannot go on. But, of course, the parents have always had, different opinions about whether online classes is good for their children or not. That's also dependent on, the parents who come from various backgrounds, especially now when the parents were poor or they were from rural backgrounds where internet connectivity was an issue, they always complained that the students, of course, were lagging behind compared to the others who had better internet connectivity to actually listen or concentrate at the online classes, which would be always buffering and wouldn't be a constant stream. And there were also the other category of working class parents who are either working from home or outside and wanted their children to have some sort of activity in terms of education because they couldn't go out. So now the High Court, of course, has opened this debate up once again and has sought answers from the government.
Oh, this is very interesting. We're going to keep an eye out on that because it concerns students across the entire country as well. Thank you so much, Deepak. With that, a quick look at the Chennai City edition of Times of India. It talks about the fourfold jump in the cases with flu-like symptoms. Unfortunately, a big worry that it has been. Shabir is joining us with more details on that. He'll tell us how there are about 10,000 samples have been tested in a day as per the corporation. Perhaps that is the reason why there has been a fourfold hike in the number, because the number of people also who are being tested has increased. Is that the reason? Shabir is joining us, our bureau chief from Chennai. What is the reason behind this hike, Shabir?
Well, the reason is that the Chennai Corporation has changed its strategy in terms of reaching out to people who are with symptoms like fever. And they have set up fever camps all across the city, massive setup in areas where more and more cases of COVID-19 are being reported. So there is this community intervention program that the Chennai Corporation has launched, which is giving them some results in terms of identifying people who are suffering with COVID-19, and also at the same point of time symptoms that may lead to COVID-19. So there is some massive amount of change in strategy has helped Chennai Corporation in identifying these vulnerable cases in the city.
Thank you so much for getting us all the details on that, Shabir. We are going to be tracking that story very closely, but let's also get you some more news which is coming in on several of the from the Times Sports section. Well, there you have it. I've got it open now finally in front of me. The golden sky at the end of the storm. It's number 11 for Liverpool after a wait of 30 years as Klopp's Reds break away from the new song. If you're a sports fan, of course, this is the page that you're going to be going across to. Meanwhile, in football news that we've been getting for you, it talks about how there are records which are waiting to be set by Liverpool. Everyone's going to be looking out for that. The Reds are on course to be the highest ever Premier League points total of 100, which the City got during the 2017 campaign. They are currently 86 points with 7 matches left. So we're going to be rooting for that one. Well, with that, a quick break right here on Newspaper Show. Of course, we haven't even looked at the world as well as the entertainment pages. That's coming up. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching the Newspaper Show. We are now going to be looking at the global edition of the Times of India, the Times Global section. And this is a very important one because it keeps you abreast with what's happening around the world. Now, one of the stories that it looks into is how a man has stabbed 6 people in Glasgow and was killed by the police. Of course, here on Times Now, immediately we got you those visuals as well of quite a police hunt and the number of people who were engaged in the operation of bringing down a man. Unfortunately, at the end of it, the police had no no other option but to shoot him dead. And amidst that, there is another story which is coming in. As the curbs are now easing up, there are illegal raves which are being reported across Europe. In fact, it says here in one of the headlines, illegal raves have boomed across Europe as the curbs have eased. In fact, it says that the police have sometimes struggled to disperse the illegal parties, with clashes being reported in London, where crowds have attacked the police with bottles and set up patrol cars on fire, leaving 22 policemen injured in London. Well, there are similar such stories which are coming in. Unfortunately, we completely run out of time. Hopefully you enjoyed reading your morning newspapers as much as I did. Thank you so much for watching.